Welcome to He's Been Doing It All Day. We're Adam and Symon. This episode brought to you by the Carlton Draft. Check out our shirts on their Instagram at the Carlton Draft. Check out our Instagram at Been Doing It All Day. And check out the whole episode, which goes live on YouTube Mondays, 7:30pm. Just search for He's Been Doing It All Day. Welcome to the back half of round 16. Adelaide versus the Giants. It's that prime time again, Tuesdays, 5:40pm, Adelaide Oval. It's no rumours. This isn't from your dreams. Don't stop, because Matty Stevie Nicks has won 2 in a row. It was a game that literally no one thought the Giants could lose, and they lost. Matt and Brad went full Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon on the Giants and used the 58-touch combo to knock the Orange Tsunami out. The Golden Archers' Shane McAdam was everywhere and kicked 2 as well. Elliott proved to Harry who was the superior Himmelberg as he climbed his back like Edmund climbed Everest and took a hanger. The sole highlight for the Giants was Bobby climbing the hill that was 202cm Riley O'Brien and took what may be Mark of the Year and followed it up with what may be Goal of the Year too. Crows the September specialists as they win their second on the trot by 12 points.
Carlton versus Sydney. Now, I want to speak to any Carlton supporter that's had to cut their fingernails this year. I don't believe they're out there. They don't exist. 8 games this year, under 10 points. You are joking me. The Swans were a steam train in the first half. They kicked 7 straight unanswered goals, but the Baggers pegged them back. Now, there's a new king of Lygon Street, and that is King Cottrell. He took a mark and slotted the set shot with 3 minutes to go. Lewis Taylor Swift had a chance at the other end, but he missed it to the right, and the Baggers clutched a mathematical possibility of making the 8. Also, to thank the new king of Lygon Street for his match-saving victory goal. They've dropped him this week, so good job. The Carlton Blues by 5 points.
Lions versus the Suns. Time for the Q Clash. Isn't every game a Q Clash at the moment, though? Could they think of a better name? I mean, they tried the Sunshine Stoush for a while. Sorry for the rambling. It was pretty easy for your mind to wander during this one. Lockie has surely sewed up Charlie with 33 touches. Our man Huey had 28 and 1. And like Simon Lovett beating up on Michael throughout their childhood, the Lions bullied little brother just enough so they wouldn't get in trouble from mum. Cam made it rainer with 3 goals, but a sitter when he missed a snap from the goal square. Plenty of injuries for the Lions as McCarthy copped a cork that the schoolyard bully would be proud of. Jared Strawberry did a shoulder and Brandon was left seeing stars, Safich, as he tasted the Gabba grass. A win more comfortable than sleeping alone in a king bed. Lions by 45.
Round 17 kicked off with the Saints versus the Eagles, and this game was crazy. First it was the Saints, then it was the Eagles, then it was the Saints again. Then Jeremy McGovern tweaked his hamstring at half-time and the Eagles were under the pump. In the end, though, it was all Tim Kelly and Andrew Gaff. They were the difference. Both got 30 touches, both kicked a goal, and between them, they were involved in 14 out of the 20 scoring chances for the West Coast Eagles. The Eagles lock in their finals, and the Saints let this one slip through the tips of their fingers, but they're still in it. They're still going to make the 8-2. The Eagles take this one by 15 points.
Cats versus Tigers. Game of the season, or so we were told before the bounce. Someone must have turned the oven up to maximum because it was hot in the kitchen to start. Then the Cats must have forgotten to pay the electricity bill because it cooled off pretty quickly after that. Cheap suits were annoyed at the Richmond defence because of how much they were all over Tomahawk, and it completely stifled the Hoops attack. Richmond copped a bad case of the Brisbanes and kicked 3 goals 8 in the third quarter. Jack Riewoldt decided to rewind to the days of old and dropped a sneaky 4 through the big sticks. It wasn't all sunshine and daisies for the yellow and black as Ivan the Terrible looks to have caught a terrible case of the ACL, courtesy of his leg being bent in half, and he's going to be gone for 12 months. The Tigers by a very comfortable 26 points.
North Melbourne versus the Fremantle Dockers. Now, I don't want to talk about it. I don't want to talk about this one. You know what though? I'll talk about this. This is all I have to say. Hogan kicked 4, Walters kicked 3, Schultz kicked 3, Tab the Crab kicked 3. The Dockers won by 64 points. Shout out Toddy G, 250 games. You've been a soldier, but Jesus, that's it. That's all I'm saying.
Port versus the Dons. I hope you brought your wellies, boys, because this one was wet. And it didn't just rain water from the skies, it rained goals from the power boots. The Dons led at quarter time by 5, only to then trail by 28 at half time, and the game was done. Big Charlie decided that two hands were for beginners and he was an expert as he pulled in a one-hander, reminiscent of Odell Beckham Jr. Tom Rockcliffe was an absolute pig in shit as he rolled around in the mud and racked up 31 touches. I could tell you more about the second half, but the game was over by the long break. Basically, the rain, much like the Bombers' hopes for any semblance of hope, kept falling. Power solidify their top 2 spot and canter to a 50-point demolition.
Giants versus the Demons. There's a rare combination of games in footy. Ones that mean something, for the latter, that is, and when two teams turn up equally. And now when these two Venn diagrams intersect, it is a thing of beauty. The Demons versus the Giants are duking it out for 8th spot, and both teams desperately need the win. Brent Caleb Daniels was kicking goals like you kick rolled up socks through your parents' hallway door when you were a kid. And the big, shiny Kenworth, Christian Petracca, put forward another nomination for Brownlow favouritism. Then it was the D's in an absolute pinch. They held on to keep their season alive. The GWS is starting to sweat it in the Mathematics Club. It was the D's by 5 points. Crows versus the Blues. If you told me at the start of the year that the Crows were on the march in September, you'd be up and about if you're a Crow eater. Unfortunately though, in the real world, they're still on the bottom of the ladder. But they're making a charge to rectify that, I guess. As for the Baggers, well, last week we were talking mathematics, and it doesn't matter which way you look at this, the equal sign always equals you're stuffed. It wasn't pretty for the Baggers. The fourth member of the Bee Gees, Bryce Gibbs, got his 27 touches in his last game ever. Shout out BG. Lockie's got big shoulders as he carried the Adelaide team with 24 touches, and it was for the third time, back to back to back in September, the Crows get their third win in a row by 16 points.
And now we go live to the Hawthorn Western Bulldogs game because we know you come for your live scores when you're listening to this after the fact. Hawthorn currently trailing at quarter time 1-1 to 4-1. The Doggies with a hot start. Symon, we need 2 predictions. Sydney versus my Brisbane Lions tonight.
Brisbane, it's got to be, unfortunately. As much as it pains me to say, I think you guys are running hot at the moment. You can't kick straight, but you'll get the victory.
And Collingwood versus the Suns tomorrow.
Sunny boys. You know what? Back them in. Sunny boys. They're tired, but I'm gonna support them.
There you go. And that is the end of round 17. Recaps are done. Let's get into some spicy takes. Simon, do you want to kick us off with a spicy take?
Well, I don't know if it's spicy, but there's been a bit of chat around the place that Geelong are going to go hard for Jack Viney, and I think that is a complete waste of time. He is not leaving. No way is he leaving the D's. I just do not see it. He's one of those guys who will put in effort and just stay at that club the rest of his life. He's just that guy. It's just what he is. You can just tell. He just went there from a kid. You know, he was captain. He's just hard-nosed, in and under guy. He'll just stay there forever. And, I mean, he'll probably be disappointed, and that's a sad thing, but he's not going anywhere.
Geelong have become the club that everybody's linked to. It's like Jeremy Cameron's going there, Brad Crouch is going there, Jack Viney's going there. Not everyone's going there.
They could go there. And but I mean, my next question is, I mean, he's the obvious just next replacement for Joel Selwood. They're just like, hey, let's just get another Joel Selwood. Who's the closest, the person that's out there? Oh, Jack Viney. Let's just get him again. What are your thoughts, Justin?
I don't know. You say that there's no way he's leaving, but I reckon there's not even a small part. I reckon there's a large part of him that looks at Nathan Jones and goes,
Yeah.
Do I want to play 300 games, be captain for 2 years, and literally like barely sniff finals, or do what Danger did, leave Adelaide, go to Geelong, and play finals every year for 6 years, and maybe get lucky? Jones and Mark Murphy to me are the two. Like, yeah, they've had great careers, but they must just be like, God, I couldn't have pulled a worse range.
He sucks.
Yeah.
Isn't there's like a comparison because Jones was drafted in the same year as Selwood, I think, and they both played close enough. I mean, Jones is just under 300, Selwood was just over 300, but their win percentages, Jones wins like 30% of his games, and Selwood's win percentage is like 70% or something, 65%.
Yeah, look, it's a sad existence, but like, I don't know, you can hang your hat on loyalty, I guess.
Yeah.
You can also hang a premiership medallion up in your house as well.
Yeah.
Yep, there is that too. There is that too. It's funny though how Danger was that guy for Adelaide, but then he just left, and now like, who even remembers that he played for Adelaide? No one. He's like Geelong man through and through.
Yep, that's fair.
Yeah, I don't know. But then you look at like Jack Stevens. Is Jack Stevens a Geelong guy, or is he Hawthorn player? I mean, a St Kilda player. So
He's not.
He's Saints. He won like four BNFs there or something.
Yeah.
That'll be like if
if
they win a flag, that'll be like a Luke Ball sort of just end of the year, like, oh, I want a flag there, but
Yeah.
you're still saying it.
Yeah.
Still a saner. What have you got for us, Adam?
All right. This is hot takes. It's Luke Hodges taking it out of my mouth, but they should go back to the 20-minute quarters for the finals. It's such a spectacle for a prelim final or even a grand final where it ends up 6-4 would be a real blight on the game. It should, not that it will, and I don't think that it will, but I think that it should.
That is a great take. I haven't heard that yet. Yes, that is awesome because they're going to have a week off between every game anyway, so just do it.
Exactly.
Bigger scores, more advertising, you're going to make more money. Yeah, that's unreal. Rate that.
Better for the revenues, there's better ratings.
I've been thinking this. I reckon it's going to be really weird when it goes back to 20 and time on games. Games are going to feel so long, I reckon. It's going to be odd.
I'm not convinced that they'll go back. They won't go back very quickly. I don't reckon they'll go to full. They might go to 18s maybe, but I don't reckon they'll go to 20s because if you go to 20s, they fit the extra game in there. Like, score-wise, it's no good, but for the average punter, like my girlfriend, she is loving watching football at the moment because it goes for like an hour and a half. And then she's like, okay, cool, I'm done with this. I can get on with my life. So, it's not about the rusted on supporters. You're watching it whether it goes for 16 minutes or 40 minutes. But I reckon the appeal to the non-football watcher, if it's shorter, is better. So I reckon they're likely to keep it.
I think the appeal to the non-football watcher, though, I don't know, can you get them to become rusted on if games are only going for so short and there are only 6-4 or like whatever else may be happening in the results where the finish is like 40 points to 30. Like the Geelong-Richmond game was meant to be one of the games of the season. Two teams sitting in the top 4, it finished like 50 to 30.
Yeah, but that's okay. Like, you just do it long enough and then that just becomes the normal. Like, because we've only done 1 year where we're used to these higher scores, mate, kids that are 10 will just get used to scores that are that, and like that would just be the score. And the score's the score, and you're like, okay, cool. It's just, you just recalibrate a little bit. I reckon, 16-minute quarters, I reckon they're probably here to stay.
Well, it depends if they reduce the like interchanges, or they need to do something else to change the metrics of the game. So I think they can't just do it at 16 and no, I think just less rotations. Yeah,
because they're also
Just,
fit, but it doesn't work.
You got a take for us, Just?
Less take, but I reckon Geelong they're on notice. It's not quite alarm bell, red flag territory yet, but I reckon they'd have to be pretty worried about what happened the other night. Richmond are obviously a good team, but Geelong's record in finals the last however many years, went out straight sets, I think it was last year, lost to Melbourne the first round the year before. I think it was made the prelim last year. Did they make the prelim last year? Yeah, they beat West Coast in the second week. I think they've made 4 prelims in the last 6 years or something like that. It's got to get worrying at some point. And I reckon they ran into Richmond the other night, and Richmond destroyed them, and they sort of be looking around thinking, oh, have we peaked too early? Yeah, I don't know.
Richmond just sat on Hawkins and they played like 4 blokes on him. And because so much of their scoring and their play goes through Hawkins, that you take him out and they're like, oh, there's no Gary Rowan either. We've just got to worry about this first game of Ben Jarvis, who was fine, but I mean, he wasn't taking much attention away.
But by no means, they're not dead. But wouldn't want to go that far because they're still going to get Selwood hasn't played and they're going to get Ablett back. So I think they're still rightly one of the best 3 teams. But and same with Brisbane. I reckon once you get back to finals, past finals matters. Like, experiences of losing is not a good thing to have. So it'd just be interesting to see how those other teams go, I reckon.
What happens to that Geelong team when you put in Gary Rowan and Gary Ablett into the forward line? It looks way different. And Selwood into the middle. Like, it looks way different. Way, way different. You've got actually someone else you can kick to. So I reckon the Tigers might have to change it up again, but they will. They're guns, so.
Yeah. All right, up next, we've got an interview with AFL draft guru Cal Twomey. This week's guest, Symon, is superstar footballer, journalist, and AFL draft expert. He's the co-host of Road to the Draft and the AFL Exchange podcast. Cal Twomey, welcome to the show, mate.
Oh, thank you, Adam and Symon. It's good to be on. Yeah, I've seen looking at the iTunes rankings and the podcast, and I've seen you guys popping up recently and thinking, geez, how can I get myself on another top 3 podcast? And here I am.
Mate, you may as well retire now. This is the top of the tree.
Exactly right. No, you're doing a good job, and it's, I'm glad to be here talking footy with you. I know I've talked a bit of footy with you previously, Adam, so and your lines are obviously flying, and yeah, Symon, happy to talk Roos with you as well if you want, mate.
But yeah, look, I know that you're an Essendon supporter, mate, so I don't know if anyone wants to hear us talk about our teams, to be quite frank. I don't know if there's much purchase in talking about us in September, but mate, you're in the hubs at the moment.
I am. I'm in.
How's it going? How's it tan?
I don't have much of a tan, to be honest. I have been out and about just in terms of going for a walk, but I'm living in one of the hubs. Means that I'm under the same protocols as the players and the families who are up here as well. So I don't go to many places. I went to Metricon Stadium today for the game, and that's about the only place I go really. Go for a walk around here at the golf club and those type of things, but don't get out too much. But yeah, it's interesting. There's a couple of clubs where I'm staying, Carlton and the Western Bulldogs. So it's interesting, catching the lift up and seeing who's going to get on the floor with you and those type of things. There's been some interesting lift chats. We all know how bad a lift chat is at the best of times, but when some after a win or a loss, what do you say? What do you do? There's a combination of teams and players and coaches and all these type of things. So it's a sort of strange environment, but it's fantastic. And the AFL's put in a fair bit of stuff and work to make it all happen this season.
Does that make it a bit strange because you are a journalist who's obviously writing stories about these players? Does it make it hard knowing that you're going to run into them? Like, you can't say that Bailey Smith's got a shocking haircut. Well, I mean, he's clearly got the best haircut in the game, but you can't say that he's got a shocking haircut because you'll see him, and then he looks at you and you're like, yeah, sorry about that, mate.
Well, actually, I actually did a story with Bailey Smith a couple of weeks ago and know Bailey pretty well, and we're actually sitting in the foyer comparing earrings because we've both got earrings at the moment, and we're talking. So that's what's happened to our lives in 2020. But no, I know what you mean. But I did write a trade story about a player a few weeks ago, and then I think it was 2 days later, bumped into him waiting for a lift, and it was like that sort of awkward part where you don't say what we're both thinking, but. Yeah, there is a bit of that. You have to be a little bit mindful. But no, obviously the stories come first and, everything's treated pretty respectfully.
And also, speaking of hub life, Cal, is there a rivalry amongst the journalists? Now, we're talking about the newsbreakers here. Like, can you feel a bit of tension between like Tom Morris and Tom Brown and Steve-O and Ralphie? Is there just a little bit of those newsbreakers? Are they starting to rival each other to see who can break the story first?
Well, I mean, it's a very competitive industry, as you're aware, but I'm actually in sort of a different spot to them. So they're actually somewhere else at the moment, and I'm the only journo at this place. So I'm sure there is, that sort of competitive nature out there to get the story first and get it right and these type of things. And we all know the immediacy of all footy news these days, how quickly one thing spreads to another on Twitter and goes like wildfire. So there is a bit of buzz around that type of thing. But, yeah, I know a few more journos have come up in the last couple of weeks, and they'll be ending their quarantine pretty soon, which will be interesting to have them on the ground here in Queensland.
What's the best story that you've broken? Because I feel like that's the highlight of a journo is like, got the story, got out there early. What's the best break that you've had?
That's a good question. There's bits and pieces across the way. There's contracts and players and players leaving, players joining clubs. It's probably more around those ones. All the draft stuff that we do every year. I count that as sort of tipping the news. We basically tip who the first 15 players are going to be every year. So I'd probably use that as a bit of that's probably my badge of honour in terms of having to work out which players are going to be picked where and by whom, when it's like sort of piecing together a puzzle where the pieces don't actually fit, but eventually you get to the point where you actually worked out who the first 15 picks are going to be also on draft night. So that's probably the part that I find the most exhilarating in terms of my role. That sort of breaking the stories around who's going to be going where and joining which clubs.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up, mate, because I actually just had a hot take prior to getting on with you. There's been a bit of talk about Jack Viney going to the Cats, and I've said he's no chance of going. Can you give me any of your professional insight? What do you think?
Is this based on gut, or you just can't see it happening?
I just think that Jack Viney, he's like a heart and soul guy. You know what I mean? Like, he's heart and soul of Melbourne. He, captain there. His dad played there. He grew up on Melbourne. Like, that's just his team. It's a gut. He's just a loyal guy. Jack Viney strikes me as a loyal guy. He got married quite young. You can see that's where his values sit. I just cannot see him leaving to go to the Cats. What do you think?
My question to you in return to your own question is, why hasn't he re-signed yet? Like, he's a free agent and he's all of those things which I agree with. So why hasn't the deal been done? So there's clearly some thinking going on, and something that's going to sort of meander into the off season as well. Geelong clearly are going for a midfielder. They've got interest in Brad Crouch. They're probably trying to find who's going to fill that real hard and midfield option once Joel Selwood departs, whenever that is. So no, I think it's in the realms of possibility. Yeah, I'm not saying it will happen, but I think it's certainly something that's been talked about, and he's been linked there clearly. So and the Cats are the pieces fit. I'll put it that way. In terms of why it's taken so long. There's some other interest out there. Lost the captaincy last year. Obviously, as you mentioned, his dad was list manager as well and helped put this list together. I don't think Jack would have been rapt to lose the captaincy in the way it all sort of panned out last year, and he's a competitor. So you wonder how much that's driven him and driving him. But, yeah, I think there's still a sneaky chance.
Mate, I think I'm going to go with rumours. That was a very good answer, but I'm going to go. Have you heard? Fournette who plays for the Jacksonville Jaguars? Well, not anymore. Now he plays for Tampa Bay, but he got his team to put the rumour out that New England were interested. Did you hear about this? And then
no.
Everyone thought that New England were interested. Bang! People are snapping him up left, right, and centre. Got him an extra $2 million. I reckon the Viney team, just little ruse there. The Cats are interested. Get an extra $0 on the contract, something like that. Bump it up, and then he'll stay.
Is that the Buccaneers that he's gone to?
He's gone to the Bucks now, so he got $2 million for the Bucks, but and I think he's still got 5 guaranteed on his Jacksonville Jags contract. So he just did it for a bit extra cash. Maybe Viney's going that option, but. I heard
story,
your
by the
answer.
way. I've been to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers a few times, their actual headquarters, and inside their rooms and lockers and everything for tours.
There you go.
And I guess the crowning glory of that facility is that they say they have the biggest flag in America, and it's an enormous flag. Like obviously the icon is that sort of pirate symbol. And it's this huge flag, which they're very, very proud of. And each tour that I went on as part of sort of an academy thing that we're over there for with work, they were very proud about their big flag. So there you go. Fun fact about the Tampa Bay Bucks.
You come to He's Been Doing It All Today for the recaps and for the interviews, and you find out who's got the biggest flag and where the biggest flag is in America. How good's that? You also did a great job of just giving you gave Simon an absolute journalism education there when you went with, well, why hasn't he re-signed? And then Simon was like, I looked at his face and he was like, oh, maybe he's right. Maybe he is right. Who do you think the trade this year that will be the one that we don't expect, like the Lockie Neal trade that happened a couple of years ago? Because there's always one that you don't really, that it's not happening in the media this early. Everyone's talking about Joe Daniher and all that kind of stuff, and will probably get done. But is there one behind the scenes that you reckon that'll happen?
Good try.
Thank you.
So just for our listeners' perspective here, before the show, you guys said, what's the story that you know about that you haven't written yet? And there's a couple of these that are in my head right at the moment that I've got a notepad in there, and I'm willing to sort of just getting to the point where you can pull the trigger on a couple of trade stories. And there's a couple there that'll be big surprises, I think. So I don't want to let the cat out of the bag too quickly.
The cat, interesting, Simon. The cat. Mm-hmm. I'm listening. He's dropping hints.
Lockingham was huge, wasn't it? Like, no one saw that one coming in the way it did. There was no link there. There was no reason for him to be going to a club that at that point was, below them on the ladder. So, I don't know if there'll be one quite as big as that. But you always look at guys who are maybe a year or two out from contract, whether the guys who are out of contract next year want to bite the bullet and look for a longer-term deal somewhere else. So they're the type of guys that you look for.
You heard it here first, Joe Daniher to North Melbourne. Perfect. Wouldn't even have to move house.
And then obviously the draft, Cal, you having a tough time, or not a tough time, but it's made your job a lot more difficult having no footy in Victoria for the young kids with the NAB League and everything like that. But everyone seems pretty convinced about Jamara being the number one, the Doggies NGA prospect. Who is going to be number 2 and 3? Because Symon really cares about 2, because that's probably who's going to go to North Melbourne.
Well, or not, who knows? They might have the number 1 pick the way they're going, the way the Crows are going at the minute. But yeah, look, Jamara Ugle-Hagen's the obvious one, given he's got the Bulldogs link. But that's the interesting part too, because whether the Crows, who actually, at the moment have pick 1, obviously, whether they actually bid on him is another story in my mind. I'm not sure that they actually would bid on him with the pick 1 and sort of force their pick to go down to pick 2, because the Bulldogs are going to match that regardless. So do you lose the rights and the prestigiousness of having pick 1 and parading that pick 1 to your club and your supporters? I don't know if you do that. So Logan McDonald is a big chance. He's the key forward from WA who's on fire over there. Kicked 20-odd goals from about 7 or 8 games. So he's been really good, sort of a Nick Rewalt / Tom Lynch type of forward, work up and down the ground. Riley Philthorpe's a tall forward and Ruckman from South Australia who's in that mix. And Elijah Hollands is one of my favourites. He's just class. A big body midfielder, about 189 centimetres, can kick the ball a mile. He's a good goal-kicking option too when he plays forward. So they're probably the 3 or 4 that are in that mix. And, I think if the Crows don't take one of them, I'm sure the Roos will be looking at the same guys. And, I think they can't really go too far wrong with any of those blokes right at the top pool.
So take your $20, mate, and you've got to put it on number 1, or you're going to keep that close to your chest until you pick your 15 in a row. Who goes number 1? Who's the one?
I think Logan McDonald's the best performed draftee in the country at the moment. So he has the runs on the board, he's got the form on the board, and really he would be ahead of the other guys at the moment. The only question is whether Elijah Hollands, and this is the case for a lot of Victorians, he hasn't played this year because of his ACL injury, so that adds another factor to the whole mix. But he's a Victorian anyway, so he wouldn't have played regardless. So that's probably what's kept him right at the top of the pool anyway, because he hasn't missed anything that he wouldn't have otherwise missed because of COVID and all that type of stuff. But yeah, I think Logan McDonald would be the one who is definitely pushing to be that number 1 option now.
Awesome. Perfect, mate. You heard it here first. Logan McDonald's going number 1. And Joe Daniher's coming to the line, so thanks very much.
You don't need any more good players, though.
Well, we'll bloody take him, mate. We will bloody take him. Thanks for joining us, Cal.
No worries. Anytime. Happy to chat footy with you guys.
Thanks, mate. Time for our weekly award. Who's been doing it all day? Syme, tell us, for you, who's been doing it all day?
Well, my who's been doing it all day this week, it's a bit more of a shout out than anything else. Look, the whole team played terribly, but he played his 250th game this year. He's been stalwart of the North Melbourne Kangaroos, and this is a completely biased one. Todd Goldstein, he's my who's been doing it all day. I mean, They lost by 64 points, and he still got 28 hitouts. So, he's just a force, and he's been a ruck force for 10 years. 10 years he's been in All-Australian discussion. There was maybe a couple of years where he dropped off, and I wanted to trade him, but I'm back. I'm back on the horse. So, Toddy G, 250 games. Congratulations. He's my who's been doing it all day this week.
All right, and we'll go up mine next. My bloke who's been doing it all day, Tom Stewart, coming out of the back pocket for Geelong. He plucked out of South Barwon. They love trotting out the thing. Matty Scarlett was his coach in Geelong Footy League, and he's like, you should have a crack at footy. Now the guy's got a couple of All-Australian Blazers. He racked up 25 touches against the Tigers. Granted, the ball was in their back line a fair bit, but he is an elite kick and an elite defender for a guy who's just come from nowhere, really. Just finish us off.
Love it. I'm going with McGovern Light, Tom Barrass. Jeremy McGovern's offside, right-hand man down there in the West Coast back line. It's unfair that they have both of them. Barrass is so good. And then when McGovern got hurt the other night against the Sainers, he got hurt twice. He got knocked out and then he did his string, that's right. And Barrass just stood up. He just clunks everything and he's so big. Oh, he's so good.
He's thick. He's so thick.
I think he's 196 centimetres, I just looked up. It's like genuine ruckman size. I would love to have Tom Barrass.
He's going to be a busy boy the next couple of weeks. No J-Mac down there, so so the heat's on him.
Feels like injuries. Yep. There's a few big guns that are going to be coming back late in the piece. Andrews, now McGovern. It's going to be interesting.
Yep, Tommy Lynch as well. All right, that's it for another episode of He's Been Doing It All Day. We're Adam and Simon and Justin. This episode brought to you by the Carlton Draft. Check us out. Our shirts are on sale on their Instagram at the Carlton Draft. That's draft with an F. Check us out Instagram at Been Doing It All Day. And the whole episode is going to be out on YouTube Monday night, 7:30. Just look up He's Been Doing It All Day. All right, we'll see you next week.